All right, so welcome everybody to our webinar on this beautiful Wednesday morning, Wednesday evening. And I don't know where everybody is, but it's certainly chilly in Joburg. So just by way of introduction, I'm Charlene Castle, the National Director of Epilepsy South Africa, and proudly here to speak to you about a wonderful, wonderful topic, epilepsy carers, because we know how important carers are to all of us with epilepsy, and an invaluable role that each of the carers play, and our loved ones and our inner circles play in order to enable us as people with epilepsy to be the contributors to society, the mothers, the partners, and everything we are. So tonight is about speaking and about offering you some insights, offering each person with epilepsy insights in this regard. And tonight with me, I'm thrilled to introduce you to Dr. Vuyiswe Mandita. She's a practicing neurologist at Mill Park Hospital in Mill Park Hospital part of the Netcare Group. And Dr. Mandita spoke at our Epilepsy in Durban, held at Netcare head office in February this year, National Epilepsy Week, and on numerous other opportunities and platforms. So welcome, Dr. Mandita, to this evening, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a joy.
Pleasure. And our other guest and panelist tonight is Laurie-Ann Brown. And Laurie-Ann, it's been a wonderful journey getting to know Laurie-Ann. Her very unique family. In fact, Laurie-Ann has a person with epilepsy like I am. Laurie-Ann's mom has epilepsy, and both her teenagers have epilepsy. So Laurie-Ann tonight is going to speak to us in the context of the carer, the person with epilepsy. So dual hats all the time. So, and Laurie-Ann, welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so I think the first thing I just want to jump into, and let's just, tonight is quite informal. It's about really live, real conversation about topics that are really key. I'm going to just ask Dr. Mandita, if you can just kickstart our conversations with us about what do you see on a day-to-day basis in your practice when your patients are coming to you, and just if you kickstart this frame epilepsy for our viewers in the context of the neurological space, so that we just position that immediately for everybody, and then into what your experiences are and how you see carers in your practice and generally.
Yeah, from a doctor's perspective, with regards to epilepsy, the role of the carer is very unique, because for us, the carer gives perspective that the patient themselves may not necessarily have. And so a lot of the time, when one insists on having a third person in the consultation, like that's a unique thing to epilepsy, because generally people, want that to be a safe space of discussion with their doctor. But the uniqueness in epilepsy is, that someone will give insight, even to the person with epilepsy, of what happens during a seizure, and may then speak of missed, seizures. So because a lot of them are so subtle, so that, the carers are so important to us from a perspective of categorizing the epilepsy, number of seizures, and planning for treatment going forward. And I find that it's a unique type of situation with epilepsy, where they sort of underplay how important they're involved.
That's an interesting question. There's so many of us. Obviously, myself and my husband are primary carers for our two teenage girls who live with epilepsy. But I see their neurologist, I see their various therapists, all as part of our caring network and team. And so they are all, it's really important for me that there's a team around us of people who care for my girls. If I see it as just sitting on my shoulders, I will break. And I think that's a reality for anyone. So I need to see the medical team as a partnership within that, even if on days I literally am the only one around, which is most days, it stops me from feeling alone. If I know that I've established a really good relationship with their neurologist and their psychologists or OTs, whatever the situation may be at the time, that allows me to feel supported in another way. So I know that the girls' neurologist has my back because it's been 11 years of journeying with her, and so to be able to just not feel alone, I think is key.
If I may add,
Yeah.
you know, I what you said about not feeling alone with the involvement of your doctor, because you know, the whole idea of a long-term partnership and walk through the illness, you know, that's so important, because I just find that's the initial thing to sort of tell a family. I love to have a family meeting at the onset of diagnosis. And because of that, some people have asked me to then come and educate their co-workers as well, because I like to create that awareness that this is going to be a lifetime walk, and all the that need to shape it, and how we then need to decide on how to take that walk as the neurologist and family, you know. And I think that family discussion becomes so important, you know. I recently walked the walk of a carer for you know, with my mom for a year for cancer. And I always told her that this feels like the final year of medical school, that I didn't, you know, sort of that to close off my experience of walking through an illness, and the little things that carers pick up on that we may miss as the doctors, because you're looking at the drugs and all of that. And I feel like the carers have that a perspective that can make the journey and the medical decision making so much easier for us. But I've also experienced that the caregiver role has its own levels of strain, and whether it's, you know, ranging from depression to fatigue and all of that, and it's so under acknowledged, because you feel your position is to care for the person with living with the epilepsy. You neglect yourself so much. And I find that happens a lot with moms, because that is the nature of the way we deal with our children, is so, you know, sacrificial almost. So I love the idea of knowing that it's a partnership, and then we're walking it together.
So it's quite interesting. I mean, I've been doing obviously a lot of reading and a lot of research about the carers, because we know the World Health Organization has ratified a document that everybody will get to know as the Intersectoral Global Action Plan. And it's the first time ever that the carers are part of a ratified document internationally, which is a massive, massive step. Because if we look at the statistics for carers, 59% of carers for people with epilepsy are women and are unpaid. Okay, so that is a massive statistic. So now, if we look at what do, like Dr. Mandita is saying, is what do carers do? I mean, one of the many things, I mean, I know my own mom, what did she do? She would notice when I was having petit mals, when no one else did. She would be the one nudging me and telling the teachers and telling everybody, listen, Charlene's she's not okay right now. And as a person with epilepsy, you don't know you're having petit mals. You don't know you're not okay. You don't know your moods are doing this. Only your carer is actually doing that when you're having seizures. they're supporting you. And, often I always advise people, and I'm sure each of you, I mean, you've really cared, and we both, three of us, we carers, right? In a lot of ways, for a lot of different reasons. One of the things that my circle and a lot of people, I mean, you both know, is taking my anti-epileptic medicine regularly and on time. There are times when my brain is so all over the place that unless I've got boxes, I forget. With all the seizures I've had, I actually stick up notes on my mirror because I no longer live with the carer infrastructure. So, yeah, Dr. Madita, weigh in. I mean, and Laurie, and both when I'm talking, I can see you both going, I can pig onto that and that and that.
If I may, I just think, from my perspective, you get two extremes and sort of a gradual spectrum in between. You get the support system that feels that the person is sick and therefore everything needs to be done for them. And then on the other end, you get a form of support system where where a person is trying to foster independence in their, usually if it's a mother and child. And one of, like, I have a lot of favorite carers, but there are so many that have taught me a lot myself, that a child with sort of a high functioning cerebral palsy and seizures, and the mom says to me, we are going to get her so independent that one day when I leave this earth, she'll be able to function without me. And a lot of people have felt that she's then expected a lot of independence from her daughter and she should be supporting more. And she feels like, my daughter should make the mistakes whilst I can catch her. And then you get the other extreme where people feel that the person shouldn't even brush their teeth unattended. You know what I mean? So I like the opportunity to give that scientific expectations, if you like, because some of them just come from just our ideas that we had on and how we think we should show love. And I always say there is no reason in this day and age for epilepsy to hinder your life such that you are an adult feeling like you are being treated like a child. And I say if the physicians can treat hypertension and diabetes and people, carry on with their lives and work, we need to endeavor to meeting that for as a team, caring for the person with epilepsy, so that we do not make them feel like there are things that are within their reach that they can't do, So I find that when we have that initial meeting, we as a team, with the person living with epilepsy and what they feel what their wishes are, and what the care, the various carers want to achieve, and we then talk about what is reachable and what is okay to do, and I like that coming together and us planning our walk that way.
Look, I mean, Lorianne, I wanted to ask you. You mentioned earlier about feeling alone as a carer, as things that now you shared with me recently about when your daughters developed epilepsy and suddenly you were creating a space where you were engaging with other moms and other people that were also carers. Like, just talk to us about that, because I think you become far more than just a mom to your daughters when things like that happen. So maybe just dig in, I mean, in terms of a carer and how that affects, if you share about I don't know, if you don't mind, your marriage, your just the facets of your work life. I know you worked full-time prior to that. So just, if you don't mind, I mean, you have a lived experience and I know it's up to you to how much you want to share, but just in terms of that context for us, Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And please, if I don't cover enough, dig in deeper. I'm an open book. So, so I think, let me start with the girls. So they're 16 and 18. They were both diagnosed at age 7. Interestingly enough, they both had their first seizures when they were 7 years old. So it's been an 11-year-long journey with my eldest that we've been navigating the whole epilepsy thing. Her first seizure was 45 minutes long. It was a brute. Her second seizure within 2 hours of that was 20 odd minutes. And so there was a massive neurological fallout from that. The panic that throws you into not knowing, is your child going to survive? Because those are monumental seizures. What does it look like going forward? Are you ever going to see your child again in the same state that she was, 2 days ago? Never mind, is she going to survive now? But is this going to cause some massive, severe, lasting damage? All of those things are super terrifying and super traumatic. I was chatting to a psychologist once upon a merry time. In fact, it was one of the my eldest daughter's psychologists in dealing with all the things that happened to her. Initially, we saw a play therapist, and she explained it so beautifully. She said to me, Lorianne, there's trauma with a capital T, and there's trauma with a small t. And she said, let me tell you what you've been through. And I got all like, it's been a capital T, okay? This has been brutal. It's been epic. And she gave me such decent perspective. She said, the trauma you've been through is with a small t. And it kind of smacked me a little bit. And it was so wonderful to understand from her perspective that there's so many worse things that can happen. She said to me, you haven't been in a car accident and had a physical amputation. We'd been through, and not to make little at all of our experience, but to say that we process trauma with a capital T differently to the way that we need to process trauma with a small t. And so she said to me, that small t trauma that you've got, you now need to put support around you. So while you can support your daughter who's going through this new terrifying thing, she's 7, she's so confused and scared by what's going on. She's experiencing things that make absolutely no sense to her. We're still trying to figure out what she's experiencing. She said, you need to have people around you that you can speak to. So whether it's and it wasn't necessarily a case of I need a therapist, which I highly recommend and did go right out and get, because that was terrifying. But it was a case of saying, what does your friendship circle look like? Is there anyone you can just have a cup of coffee with and talk normal stuff? Sometimes you don't want to be talking about your journey all the time. You just want to feel like life can be a little bit normal again. So put that in place around you. Have you got people who are people that you can talk the hard stuff through with? You need that in place. How are you going to look after yourself in terms of making sure that you have capacity to care? So there's so many things that I've processed over the last 11 years, things that are super helpful, like we know when we don't eat properly and we don't get enough sleep, we don't have much capacity, right, to care for someone. So are you eating healthy meals? Do you have a decent sleep routine? All those things you need to do for yourself as well as for your family member that you're looking after, because that's crucial for them and their survival of their journey with epilepsy anyways. But sometimes I would find myself making sure that Rach had eaten, the 5 food groups in the day, and she was in bed in time and this and that. And then I turn around and realize, like, I've had coffee and a chocolate and a packet of crisps.
Yeah.
And you know, it was just circumstantial, but that becomes a pattern, and it's really, really, you'll end up just falling apart at the seams at various points in life, unnecessarily. Does that, I don't mean like, but
No,
it could have been
it's
stopped.
real, Lorianne.
Yeah.
It's real. It's you
Yeah.
know, and I want to hand to my Dr. Madita shortly, but I want to tell you something. One of my own sister, my youngest sister, I didn't realize she joined us on a webinar a couple of years ago on epilepsy and family, and she's a lot younger than me, and she'd never spoken to out about being my sister. And I sat there and I cried because I realized how she just given and given and given, and at no point had actually said, "Hang on, this is me. This is what I have needed." And this topic tonight is so dear to my heart because of that, because I saw my boys. I've had tens and tens of grand mal seizures the last 4 years from 2020, but I've seen how my sons last year needed support from a carer team, a range of carers, from having brought me back from so many grand mal seizures. And I think I want to ask Dr. Mandita, you just talk to us about the concern for brain health of carers, for the importance of journals and diaries of tracking seizures when your patients come to you, because you're going to be seeing that from a medical perspective, but an emotional perspective, because you're a neurologist. Really, that one thing I love about you is the holistic way you address a patient and a family.
You know, just yesterday, actually, I was speaking to a carer who is a spouse to a person with epilepsy that I've had to admit to an ICU, you know. And I like when we as the healthcare team consider ourselves part of the support system that the carer has, you know. And when we sort of give them an idea of what capacity we have, or to work with them, you know. So if we have a sort of a really serious admission, I mean, all admissions are serious, but where, you know, that, you know, those kinds that scare you, and you're thinking, this person is in ICU, what has happened? You know, just, you know, those questions that you had as well, Lorianne. And at the beginning of the treatment plan, I'll chat to the carer and sort of manage expectations, and take them through my thoughts of possible scenarios of what can happen and why I am then doing certain things. And, you know, so that along the way, it's a matter of updating a person and discussing an EEG and talking to them about why my, you know, if the situation is exceeding my expectations and we're happy, and if it's not, and, you know, things like that. But it was, for me, that clear understanding of me as a neurologist as part of that support system for the carer, not only for the person with epilepsy who is my patient, you know. And I think, and I remember saying to the carer, you know, it's, you know, at this stage, it's okay if you skip a day and you go get some sleep. You know, we won't judge you if you do. And I realized that, you know, carers still almost like need permission to look after themselves, you know, and regard self-care as not supporting that person enough. Because you know, when your carer is somebody who loves you, they then don't have the capacity for self-care, you know. And I felt at that time when I was speaking to that carer, like I almost was, you know, I was suggesting it, but it felt so much like giving her permission to go and care for herself. And I said to her, you know, you know what they say when we know what we get told when we have children. Sleep when they're sleeping. Don't go and do laundry and clean your house and stuff, you know. And I said, this is your time. We have one-on-one nursing in ICU. Run for it, you know. And if you skip a day, it's okay. And you lie in bed and you watch movies that day. And I said to her, you know, let's just, you know, give the carer, if the carer at that point, you know, has an indication of what's happening, let's the three of us talk about it. And on the days that you're just going to skip a day, you are going to phone ICU, and I'll mark it as a day that I make a quick call to tell you, stay in bed. It's okay. You know, we'll see you tomorrow, you know. And but we were joking about it and laughing about it then, but I realized so much that this carer was exhausted. And that felt like really like, you know, I don't love them less if I sleep tomorrow, because I said to her, you know, this is that you have that tiny window of opportunity on this one-on-one nursing. After that, I'm sending her to you. It's your turn after this, you know. And I think that's the thing I love about neurology. It's a lifetime thing. That's why I think then every situation is unique. And if all of us on the team meet and discuss how we're going to tackle it, then everyone sort of takes their role, and everyone then knows, you know, what their capacity is and what the rest of the team is expecting from them. You know,
you said so many interesting things.
I just think, firstly, if we could all have you on our team, that would be amazing.
We could be on our team. Okay?
We'd all survive better. Because your outlook on looking after carers is beautiful. It really is. And the patient and carer that you've just referred to makes me think of a point at which I remember saying to my husband, you know, you can't pour from an empty cup. But right now, I don't even have a cup. My cup is shattered on the floor. And I don't even know where to begin to put it back together. How do we put the pieces back together so I have a cup? And then I can try and fill the cup. And then maybe, you know what I mean? So you get to that point where you are exhausted and you've given and you've given and you've given, and you've never given yourself permission to leave. You've never given yourself permission to have a day off. And we don't often have. So personally, I've not had an opportunity to have that kind of day off in terms of an ICU environment, 24-hour nursing, blah, blah, blah. That is the perfect time. But I have had the privilege. That's terrible.
It's got to be before that.
Sorry. No, I do not wish anybody's family member into ICU.
I we understand.
Right, good.
We got it.
But to have people, you know, around you, yeah.
No, please carry on, Lorian. I'll make a.
Okay.
No,
so
I just wanted to say.
Yeah. I was going to say that
it's yours.
You go, Lorian. Yeah, tell us.
That I had the privilege of having friends around, or my hubby, who could just go to the shops. Yeah. And I found that Pick and Pay was an amazing place because I would go get some groceries, and I would take those aisles so slowly, and I would go, oh look, there's 3 brands of tomato sauce. Because I just needed to think about something else, you know, I needed to be free from something else. And it sounds crazy, but even those little moments helped me to kind of try and put another piece back into the cup, and try and build the cup up again. I've often spoken about taking miniature holidays, because realistically we don't all get a week at the beach. But as a carer, you can take 5 minutes And if you use those 5 minutes really well, they can actually fill you quite well.
I think, you know, what I'm really hearing and what I've learned with epilepsy is that brain health is so important. And in my role, brain health is everything. And it's not just because since COVID, it's not mental health illness. It's not, brain health matters, full stop. And if I could give a carer advice, and I listened to you talking, I listened to Dr. Mandita talking about being a carer. I know I care for people in lots of ways too. Taking that moment and taking far more than a moment, but saying there is somebody right now that can stand in where I am, because I need a breath, I need to take a beat, because I need a self-care, I need to go look after my brain, because what happens for carers, depression kicks in, anxiety disorders kick in, and all these critical things start happening medically that often are then left undiagnosed because the carer is maybe only one carer person and there is no other support system for that person. So I think I was talking to Dr. Mandita earlier and she was sharing about a case, and I'd love you to share instead of me, Dr. Mandita, where husband and wife came to see you. And that was really just such an impactful moment for me, because it made me go, yeah, that brain of that moment, that self-care, that recognition of that space being so hard is so critical. So I'll just let you take that from there.
You know, for me, the most extreme, when it comes to epilepsy, the most extreme, I'll say, depiction of what the carer goes through, or you know, where they, you know, where it is such a bittersweet thing to love someone, is with temporal lobe epilepsy that manifests in like fits of rage, you know. And like one, obviously in the beginning, when people are not educated around it, you attribute the fit of rage to the person, you know, doing that. And then the fits of rage can be so, and most of the time, all the time that I've witnessed or you know, have had carers tell me about it, they're scary. You feel like you're on the verge of being physically assaulted by this person, and that is a manifestation of a seizure. So I find in those situations, even when you explain it, you know, that it is a seizure and it's not them, then you it is still difficult in the moment to see that family member or that friend as somebody other than as someone abusing, you know. Whereas with other kinds of seizures, if you say to someone, oh no, this is just, it's a petit mal, or what we call complex partial seizure, she's not ignoring you, she dozes off a bit. Like that doesn't give you fear, you know, fear for your safety. And in that situation, when it's the male who is stronger and tougher and towering over you, and it's your spouse, it's someone you love, you have been told that those fits of rage are a manifestation of a seizure and it's not them. And you've seen how after it happens, they have no clue what happened. And from the perspective of the person with epilepsy, they come to and everyone's scared and everyone keeps away. But from the perspective of the spouse, and I remember just saying, are you, you know, to a few spouses, when they're sitting there, I remember, you know, I always ask, are you scared? And everyone always says, I'm always so scared for my safety. And you watch the person with epilepsy being so hurt by causing that kind of reaction, because most of the time the carer has protected them from the fear, from the knowledge that they now fear them. and them hearing it is so hurting and difficult, and they feel because it happens and they don't remember it. So what then happens is the spouse then doesn't actually tell them in detail what the episode was like, because they know the pain and the guilt they feel thereafter. So they always downplay it until somebody says, just tell me what happened step by step. And for me, that, well, it sort of gives that dramatic ultimate example of what the carer has to do when they love you. They protect you from yourself, and they feel like they have to protect themselves from you and forgive you immediately because it's not you, and there I think therapy is so necessary, and the stringent management of the seizures are then so necessary, because people protect, but I say let's talk about it, so that when I feel like I need to then admit you for an extended period of time to then make sure the drugs you are on don't give us breakthrough seizures, everyone understands what's at stake, including the person with epilepsy, whereas people who love them would have probably just protected them from the reality of what happens during a seizure.
Thank you.
Yeah. So,
Thank you. I think, we know how important education is, right? To everybody, to carers and the support structure for people with epilepsy. And not enough of that is being shared. And I think the carers need to own that as well, that they need to educate themselves, support structure. They need to be upskilled. What you're saying, Dr. Bandita, it's so important for those loved ones or whichever person that is caring to understand in that instant what's happening and the forgiveness of the person, because that's a whole process in itself, right? And the knowledge of this electrical current that surges through the brain, whether it's a generalized seizure, whichever low it is, and I mean, Dr. Mandita, you can, but a carer needs to understand what's going on. And for me, what I get asked a lot by lots of people, I mean, just today I was speaking about it, is if I see a loved one or I see someone having a seizure, what do I do? And the very first thing I say is, don't panic. And if you're going to panic, let someone else help, because when you're caring for someone having a seizure, it is frightening. So put your person around you who's ever having a seizure on their side. Their tongue will naturally fall physiologically to the left to keep the airway open. I've just been asked this in the chat box. It's also why I'm going there. And pull their knees up into a slight fetal position and keep them safe. Cover them with a jacket or something for discretion, because often when you have a grand mal or a generalized seizure, as we talk about them today, the person may lose control of their bladder, and just time the seizure immediately. But please don't panic. And just be there. Time the seizure, get medical assistance as you feel is needed. That's really, really critical. And as a carer, if you need to debrief, and again, you do need to debrief. Let's be very, very honest. When you've seen a seizure, you need to debrief somebody. You need to say to somebody, hey, this was a capital T for me. I love that, Lorianne. This was a capital T for me. And I don't know how to place this in everything in my world, because right now I just want to drink a whole case of wine. Please don't go and drink a case of wine. Ask somebody, just, have you gone through a similar story? Did I do the right thing? I'm feeling like this, and it's okay to feel like that. I think giving somebody permission to have that all fall down moment is also really good, and it's okay. I mean, Lorianne, Dr. Bandita.
The other thing I've come to learn is the doctor as the caregiver.
Yeah.
Because you sort of take on a long-term relationship with someone and their family. So and a lot of that time, if it's been that long. People are coming to see you because it's working for them, and you are doing it because you're getting somewhere. So people don't, a lot of people think doctors nowadays, especially, we are so emotionally detached from the process, and we just give you the tablets, and a lot of the time it's a protective mechanism, almost, because you really take it home with you, take it on. You're in traffic thinking, what am I missing, because this is what we were aiming for, and things changed, and it's really, it's on our minds more than people think. And I find that the thing generally that we do when we're overwhelmed is we detach emotionally, and there was, there were points, and what I've learned for myself to do, because when I speak a lot to other female doctors, is we go into it and we just do it the way other people do it. And at some point I decided, yes, I'm a neurologist, but I'm also a woman, and I'm a mom, and I'm a this and a that, and I'm going to bring all of that into the work with me, but what that does then, if this mom as a carer, that there's a lot of identifying with the person as the mom. So, when I'm saturated, I've found that I have these sessions of honesty with people to say, you know what, things are heavy now. Like, I have, there are a lot of demands, and then I talk to, I would like them to do, because if I need to sort of do a lot of giving a person ideas about their extra time and hobbies and all of that, because I think brain health needs to extend to that. And when I need to do those things, and I'll ask a carer, can you just please just spend extra time talking about the last seizure? I think so and so felt that it broke your heart or whatever. Like, I also need to offload that so that the science is intact and it's accurate, because that's really what I'm there for, And sometimes the carer is so exhausted that that role of support is then given to the nursing sister and the doctor and all of that. And when we get saturated, we don't communicate enough. So when somebody is in ICU and I need to be in doctor mode to sort that out, I really say, let me do this. And I'm unavailable for that chat with her about X, Y, and Z, because if this is not something I'm focusing on, then everything's wrong, But I find when I communicate that, then people then understand that this is that block that they need to hold on to get us, all of us, through this admission, because sometimes you're sitting with a role that a family member could do, but because the person with epilepsy is your patient and your responsibility, you tend to step into that role of support and saturate that scientific role that you have to fulfill, And so when we are honest and we say, listen, this I can't get wrong. So buy me time and make sure that this person is not, so feeling alone and unloved whilst I'm busy titrating drugs and, changing doses and all of that.
Laurie Ann, yeah, I think you're smiling and you're nodding. Oh, what do you think about what's being said?
It's just, I suppose it's also real. Everything that you share, it just it hits home in not a bad way. It's just so very real for me. I can identify with all of that, having been on an 11-year journey with my girls. a journey of my own experience of living with epilepsy, as well as my mom. All of that just, it hits home and it makes so much sense. And I think just yeah, the journey of a carer it's really a beautiful thing. It's tough as anything. It is hard, but it is a beautiful thing. It's an incredible privilege to be able to come alongside your loved ones and advocate for them within a medical environment, or love them through the toughest stuff they're going through, or it's flipping hard. It's nasty and it's messy, and there are times you want to run, and then I think, I don't know, the way that I survive most is just by saying, hold on, where can I find the beauty? Because the beauty is there. It really is. When you have a doctor like Dr. Mandita, who cares for you as a carer, who acknowledges you, makes you feel seen, gives you the strength to carry on, that's beautiful. When you've got your spouse supporting you as a carer, that's a beautiful thing. When your kids who are post-ictal and feeling horrendous are able to go, Mommy, I love you, thank you. Like, that's a beautiful thing. There's beauty in this carer role. There really is, and you've just got to look for it.
Thanks, Laurie Ann. Thank you. And you know, there's so much to talk about here. I mean, one of the things I want to really help me, and then I'm going to jump into the questions, because there's just questions now, and that's fantastic. Thanks with everyone that's with us asking questions. Keep them coming. But what really helped me is that my loved ones and my circle would make it safe for me to go and play netball, or to go to school, or to visit my friends, because they're always bold enough to say, Charlene's coming to you, here are her meds, she has epilepsy, this is where she's at, and if something happens, this is how to handle it. So there was a lot of communication that was really needed and valued from my loved ones and my circle. And I think that's just really a message to carers out there as well. Just communicate. Don't worry about the stigma that exists around epilepsy, because it's a worldwide. It's a stigma for epilepsy is an international challenge that we're facing every day among the epilepsy community. And in South Africa, it's very, very rife with the different multitude belief systems we have in South Africa. So just my appeal to you is tell all the people in their lives around your loved one or the person you're looking after about their epilepsy. It makes their world even safer and even more beautiful. Just a question here, Dr. Mandita, just a short one. Is there a guarantee that epilepsy will go away? We know the answer. Please just share it with Thomas.
Is going nowhere, and I feel like that because we have a problem that's going nowhere, we need to have a lot of honesty, because a lot of people talk and they'll say, but this doctor just didn't understand or didn't hold my hand through this. And I found that when we communicate as well as doctors to say, I need to carry the person through this phase, so I'm not going to be able to do this, that, and the other. And sometimes, I love the advocacy for your loved one, but sometimes people take the advocacy to mean you must have a clipboard and tick, 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 everyone do this. Then the team is not. So that's why, because epilepsy is not going anywhere, we as doctors need to communicate so that everybody's expectations are managed, and we go, okay, we're going in. And an example unrelated, when my mom went on her journey, she had a meeting with me, and she said to me, will you be my carer? And I guess having been a mom of a doctor, and she felt like I'm such an empath, then she detailed to me, as the primary carer, this is what I would appreciate from you, and all of that. And all of it was nothing to do with the illness. It was us doing manicures and buying dresses and whatnot, so so I thought, okay, I can do that. Let's do it. But for me, it taught me again that she was saying to me, I need a daughter and not a doctor in you at this point, and I feel like that's what communication does. And because she said that to me, I wasn't a burden to my colleagues by asking, what's her blood sugar today? What's her this and this? Because my role was clear that we're doing manicures and pretty dresses, and that's it, And so I feel like when we all upfront speak about what our needs are, then we can do it. We can do, and then we can hold each other's hands when the other one is overwhelmed, because we know we are a team.
So I've just got a couple of questions, and I think somebody's asked about dietary advice, what's important to stay away from. And I think I'm nervous to jump into dietary advice here in the interest of time, but I do believe it's a whole conversation, and diet, in a summary for myself, is lifestyle is very, very, very important to a person with epilepsy. And in the context of this conversation is assisting your person to ensure that there's regular sleep. Meaning that if you are noticing that there's no sleep or insomnia or too much sleep, that what the medication is doing, consult your doctor, whether it's your GP or your neurologist or your clinician, whoever you're talking to, asking them, because we're always needing to manage the different types of medication, the right and adjustments in that regard. So I'm kind of blanketing, and then the lifestyle of food comes into it. There's lots of advice with food. I'd love just to, again, Lorianne, if you mind, if I give Dr. Mandita just
No, go for it.
With what is your, like, really just without digging into it, but your recommendation food-wise for a person with epilepsy, really for children and adults. I think instead of, we don't get into the keto, but we just as a piece of advice.
I think a lot of people know about the ketogenic diet and what we think ketones do in a protective, to protect against epilepsy. But a lot of what people tell me is that it's so hard to maintain, especially if you have a family where people are working, come home, and you just want to fix a bowl of pasta, and you're just thinking, if you're thinking protein and high fat, like, it's not always easy. But I think generally a healthy diet, and people then know that what is healthy. So I think when we, like, the best way to maintain an eating plan is to get into it, I think, gradually, and to have an aim as well for what healthy eating is for you. But stay away from refined sugars, because you have this sudden increase in your sugar level and sudden drop. That in itself can create a state for triggering of seizures. And so if we are not on basically meals that keep that level of blood sugar level stable as opposed to fluctuating, we're doing a good thing. And the skipping meals, because that drop in blood sugar can also trigger seizures, and so I say, like, we keep a balanced diet, we keep snacks in between, plenty of water and plenty of exercise. I know this sounds so drawn out, and because we've been saying it for years, but in the context of epilepsy, if we're dealing with a prone state to electrical sort of eruptions, like, for lack of a better word, that up and down of blood sugar is not a good idea, because we're trying to keep things stabilized, and consistency.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. So there's a question about one of the parents just saying it's just so hard. Their son's nonverbal. They have to watch him. He wishes that the parent just wishes that he could tell them what he feels like and what was going on. And I can only imagine and empathize with that amongst the conversations. And you know, whoever is writing to us, we've got branches across the country as Epilepsy South Africa. Pop onto our website, epilepsy.org.za or .coza, and just reach out to our social workers, reach out for conversations. We have residents that are nonverbal as adults, and we really do truly understand how hard it is. The most important thing is you need support for yourself. You need to be just chatting to somebody like Laurie Ann has said she does. Find somebody that can give you that support, that can really understand, and it makes you feel not so alone when you know somebody else is going through it. And there really are a lot of people. 1 in 100 people live with epilepsy in South Africa. It's global stats. That's World Health Organization global statistics, and we've calculated about 1 in 100. And I think the reality in South Africa is 1 in 50 people live with epilepsy, have epilepsy in South Africa. So yeah, reach out, please. That's just my advice to you. The question that we always get, Laurie Ann, when I engage with you is epilepsy hereditary? And this answer is 6% of people. That's the statistic. 6% of people with epilepsy, it will be hereditary. And I'd love to hear, Dr. Mandita, your view, Laurie Ann. We've had this conversation so many times because you're the only person I know that's got 3 generations in a family with epilepsy. So yeah, over to both of you. And I think we need to start wrapping up. But yeah, let's just take that as a last question.
I think we know with regards to it being hereditary, it's that those are the percentages, but sometimes people think they are the first person until you sort of do a family history, and then it's a certain aunt or somebody else that everyone thought was either moody or was either bipolar or something, because the seizures were misdiagnosed and that person didn't get generalized seizures. So I think in reality, it's actually more because previously people would be misdiagnosed, because if you don't have those generalized ones, or if you have a bad temper or this, or because you also get something called catamenial epilepsy, where it happens around your cycle as a woman, and people think it's severe PMS and whatnot, so that it's probably higher than that. So I think that's why we always ask, is there a family history of epilepsy, because generally that we have seen.
Thank you.
I think
Laurie,
also
closing comments.
Yes, I'll closing comment just tied onto that. Is that I think it is so, as you said, Dr. Mandita, that in this day and age, there's absolutely no reason for anyone to be living with epilepsy to the point where you have to treat them like a child. We've got so much at our disposal in terms of the science and the knowledge and the appropriate treatments. And so even although if epilepsy does turn out to be hereditary, it's actually not something to fear. I think we live in fear of so many things. But an example in my world, mom's epilepsy was nocturnal seizures only. Mine is complex partial and very seldom. My eldest is generalized epilepsy with frequent spikes, and my youngest is temporal lobe epilepsy. So it is so so varied, even within our family. And I think that the answer there is to go, just because one is having massive grand mal seizures and it might be hereditary, my world is over. It's not. If you land up with it, chances are it might be very different. And if you have the right medical care around you and the right team, there's no need to fear it, because it doesn't have to impact your life that negatively. And closing statement to the carers out there, it's not easy, but find your network, find your support structure, because it's a beautiful thing to go through this journey, and then to learn to support others through it too.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Mondito, a closing thought to leave everybody with?
You know, I'll just say that, you know, on one of my interactions with carers, sometimes I show them my diary and superimposed onto my 4 daughters' diaries. And I'll say to them, my best friend is watching hockey right now, and my husband is attending a you know, ballet recital, and I'm going to whatever it is that is happening with the other, you know, child. And the point of that is to show people that nobody can do this alone. You know, you can't be to a person with an, you know, with an illness. And so I say, for me to be here chatting to you and your loved one, a few people have to do other things for me, you know. And if we understand our limitations like that, then we set up the network and say, you know, get this colorful spread of things where, you know, we say, okay, that's you. It's like we're playing tag with our lives, you know, just say like somebody. And when it's done formally, it works beautifully.
Beautiful. Thank you, Dr. Mondito. That is both of you. I just, you know, Laurie-Anne, you actually made me quite emotional earlier when you spoke about your cup, and I teared up because I was like, wow, there was such a moment. And Dr. Mondito, thank you. You just come across and you bring so much humanity and just such a beautiful view of the science and the family and the carer. So my last message to everybody is Epilepsy South Africa is to offer support. We have loaded a load of new resources on our website, epilepsy.org.za. Just join us as members as well. You get even more access and more information shared with you. And we've got on our Facebook group, we've got a superb Epilepsy SA support group. And on this group, there's a lot of chatter from between everybody, offering each other shared knowledge. Our team from Epilepsy South Africa adds to the conversations. So it really, really is worthwhile to join our support group. We started it recently and it's just growing. So we're here for you, and it's social media is a really easy way to engage with us in that form. So I'd like to thank everybody tonight and just say, carry the torch of hope and know that as a carer, you are really cared for and valued. And just take care of yourselves. And thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you, Dr. Mondito and Laurie-Anne, for your time. And have a wonderful evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.